So let's begin. Sir, the very first question that I would like to ask you is, what sparked your personal interest in academia and pursuing a career in business education or MBA?
That's a good question. After I finished my undergrad and my MBA in India and went to work in the industry, I saw that there were some really interesting problems that companies were facing. And those problems were going beyond my own organization. So I was working for a bank in India, and I had recruited in the finance industry. But I found that there were technical issues that required to be solved. And I was surprised, having been a computer science engineer myself, I was surprised that technology still had a lot to catch up on. So I decided to go deeper and work on those problems in a way that would address situations across lots of organizations. And I also felt that by being in academia, one could actually solve problems that one is interested in working on and focus on the impact of those problems beyond organizations. So doing research and being my own person and being able to solve problems, that was the main reason why I decided to go into academia. I would say that that academics, in some ways, I have learned over time, is very much like entrepreneurship. Because what happens is that you decide on a specific question that you want to address or problem that you want to solve, and then you devise a solution to that problem, and then you want to have the largest possible impact in the world based on that problem, which is pretty much what entrepreneurs do. The only difference is that entrepreneurs are trying to create a commercial product, whereas in academics, we are not always trying to create a commercial product. We are simply trying to create a product that has use for society. One thing I would say is that in the last 22 years that I've been in academics, I have found that the number of people who go for a PhD from India, especially in business, has declined quite a bit. And I would actually encourage more and more people to consider academics, especially if they are academically strong and if they are close to the top of their class, because it's a great career. And especially if you're considering entrepreneurship, then consider business research, because that's very much like entrepreneurship in many ways. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, but I'm happy to talk more on this topic.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Gaur. We attended a recent conference that was organized by GMAC, and in that particular GMAC conference, we were told that the number of students applying, sending scores to universities for MBA program in USA has decreased by far and large when compared to previous years. So do you think the demand for the MBA course has gone down overall, or is it the only scenario that you have you also experienced the same? Because in India, that is not the scenario that we have seen over the past, at least for 3 years.
I think what has happened is that MBA programs compete in a world where there are more and more different kinds of degree programs available. So there is some fragmentation of markets happening within the US. I would say in India and internationally, more generally, the MBA continues to be a growth degree. I personally feel that part of this has to do with a challenge for business schools to adapt to the changing economic environment and the changing technological needs of businesses. So I think that the time today is much like it was in 1970s and 80s, when the capital asset pricing model came along and the financial revolution happened on Wall Street, and this whole new area of MBA career paths in banking was created. I think that now, as technology is becoming more and more relevant to businesses, and beyond tech, mainstream companies are getting affected by this. That I think is the area where growth is going to happen for MBA programs, and we are sitting on the cusp of that growth because tech is going to pervade, or is already pervading, lots of companies. So I think business schools need to take on this opportunity and expand. My sense is that we are seeing some saturation in the GMAT GMAT takers in the US, but I think it's temporary. And I also think that an MBA degree program is really the best graduate program out there because it is so well designed and the focus is not just on curriculum. No, curriculum is just about 50% of the experience of a student. And I see the transformation that students in a 2-year program go through from when they enter to when they leave. And I think there's a lot that one can gain from this program.
So, Professor Gaur, during COVID period, we had this intense rush towards making everything online, right? I think, and so sometimes I get a feeling that we have tipped a little bit, too much to the other side, where I think everything has gone online and sort of courses which do not even have very strong pedagogy are being put online in the hopes that, the name of the institution would be enough to sort of sell those courses. And that was a rush period which sort of lasted 2 or 3 years. And now how are you seeing that, right? I mean, is there a potential rebound to offline, or you're going to see hybrid models succeeding? What kind of, what is it that you see, and how are you going to be designing your sort of institution's growth around that?
Yeah. Alvin, that's a great question. Definitely people feel a hunger for in-person interaction. And we see that in the classroom, that when students come back and faculty come back and they interact with each other in person, they see that this is what they were missing during the COVID years. And the efficiency and the productivity of interactions is so much better, whether inside the classroom or outside the classroom. So we are seeing a return. But to your point, the return is happening slower than we would like. A lot of people changed their lifestyle or changed their habits during COVID, and they are still adjusting and coming back. I think that's temporary, and over time, more and more people will come back. One thing is that COVID also, or going online during COVID also taught us a lesson, because previously we had never done online curriculum. And then suddenly we were forced to do online curriculum and experiment with the online delivery of education. We have learned a lot of lessons through that process. And so I think going forward, the future is going to be one where we deliver some online programming also to our students along with in-person experiences. So for example, if someone is doing a lecture on statistics, there are a lot of tools and techniques in there that can actually be delivered better through online, and with exercises that give feedback instantaneously when a person does those exercises. So online presents a kind of opportunity to customize learning to a specific student's experience, which is not possible to achieve in a classroom. So I think going forward, we are going to be a lot more intelligent about what is in person good for and what is online good for, and then using both of them in combination. We are starting to do that here at Cornell. And so we have started a curriculum review where we'll be looking at a lot of things of this nature. And our faculty now have experience in online. That experience is going to be helpful to them. Like a specific thing I can mention, sorry to be long-winded about this, but so we have an online business analytics program. And I see that online learning is almost like gaming, where what is happening is that a student does 3 or 4 minutes of a lecture and then has lots of exercises. And I see that those students are engaging with their exercises repeatedly. Like if they get something wrong, they go through it again in order to get a 100% score, because they are getting that instant feedback. So there are some values to online that are hard to achieve in person. And then there are values for in-person which are hard to achieve online.
So, small, quick continuation to that. And I always felt that, online was mostly going to be a winner take all, especially since brands were centralized. The top 3 institutions of the world could put out online programs and the world would sort of access them. However, even that thesis is not necessarily panned out in that manner, which means every school will have its own ability to stand out with its own strength and delivery. And so, how do you see that sort of working out? If it's not a winner-take-all game, are institutions going to revert back to offline and say, wait, this is what we are good at, so we're going to stick to this? Or is it just, or is there a significant push that you see, coming in online education that makes you feel like, this is truly going to be a disruptor and not just, a plus, if you will?
Yeah. I think online is not going to be a disruptor in the sense of winner take all that we saw. That has been a lesson. Yeah, I agree with you. We still have a long way to go with online. And online can still be a disruptor when it comes to non-degree programs and certificates. And it can allow a faculty member who has created really outstanding material to extend their reach beyond the boundaries of their own school or their own university to the world beyond. So I think that potential for online is still there and is getting realized to some extent. And I can think of some courses, say in machine learning or in Python programming, which have become hugely popular beyond, and the access to those universities and those schools has gone up. I think the true value in a degree program can't be delivered purely online. And that's probably why that disruption is not happening to the extent that people expected. One can't have a 100% online degree and succeed because students need to be able to talk to someone when they have a problem, and they need to be able to discuss things with each other. So the online business analytics program that we created, what we have done is that most of the curriculum is online, but students have a couple of hours of in-person or synchronous in-person interaction with their faculty every week. So it's more like a flipped classroom environment. Okay. So that's where the connection happens, and students value that, and they ask questions about faculty research, and they want to get involved. I think education is about that fundamentally. So having a pure online product without any touch point, I think is something that underserves the needs of students.
Got that.
Yeah.
So we're sort of in the middle of evolution, kind of a forced evolution for the MBA space. Demand is sort of plateauing and in some sense coming down, but there is an online thing happening. There is some level of disruptive forces. Students are not applying at the same volumes that they used to, and so I'm very sure that there are these 2 or 3 key areas that you would have identified as what the degree is sort of lacking. So what do you think those challenges are right now, and how are you looking to improve them with respect to your program?
So firstly, in continuation to your question on online and also Priyank's question about GMAT, one more force which is affecting MBA programs, especially in the US, is that the cost of education is high. And if someone already has a job, the ability for them to leave their job and go for an MBA requires a lot of thought. And I think a lot of people want to keep working in their jobs and look at career progression within that. That's an area where online programs can possibly bridge the gap. And we see that someone will do a 1-year online degree program, and then they say, this is really valuable, and I did not have to leave my job while doing this. Can I now that I know what value this has, I would like to actually come for an MBA. So that's one thing that is happening. Another is that there's a career switcher role of MBA, which is not going to go away. There are a lot of people who have backgrounds, say in engineering, and they want to transition into management or investment banking or consulting, and it's not possible to do that without doing an MBA. Or there are people who have a completely non-technical degree, or people who have a non-business background, like a military veteran, and they want to start their career or have a new business career. It is interesting that there are some people who are completely non-tech and they want to have a career as a product manager in the tech industry. And it's not possible to do that without an MBA. So I feel that those are some needs that an MBA fulfills, which aren't going away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think what is happening is that, we do need to adapt with the times for MBA programs. So there are 2 or 3 things that we are doing and we need to do. One is that today's MBAs want to get courses that are not just within the business school, but also expose them to disciplines outside the business school. So we are trying to use all of the vast resources of Cornell that are available to provide a larger set of elective courses to our students. Some of our students who are interested, say, in energy, renewable energy, they'll go and take a course in chemical engineering on batteries or renewable energy. Likewise, there are students who are interested in human capital. They'll go to the School of Industrial Labor Relations. So I think that's one thing that's needed, the ability to connect with the rest of the university. And then our own curriculum needs to move to include more product management and things like that in it.
Got that.
Yeah.
So, Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court has put in a new ruling that has sort of struck down affirmative action in college admissions. Now, most of the top tier colleges usually are not going to be impacted, but how do you sort of see this playing out with respect to with the Cornell College, with the Cornell School?
So it's early to answer this question directly because the ruling has come out very recently, and our university is evaluating this and understanding the ruling and working on the implications of it. And our university president has spoken on this, we follow the law, and we'll continue to follow the law in whichever form it takes. One thing I will say is that when Cornell was founded, it was founded on the idea of any person, any study. This was back in 1865. And at that time, Cornell was admitting women students and students from any religion and from any race, etc., back in 1865. So that has always been the motto of Cornell. And there's a very large international population here, for example. So I think our university is committed to preserving that motto. The one more thing, I think more from a business leadership perspective, because we in academics, we want to impact business. One more thing is that the value of diversity to businesses is now well established. There have been many studies of this kind. So, for example, I am familiar in my area of studies where people find that if you form a team of doctors in a hospital where the doctors are drawn from different experiences, those teams have better surgical outcomes or better patient outcomes than teams where those doctors and nurses have similar backgrounds. Similar studies have been done with regard to ambulance crews, emergency response crews, and also with regard to software teams. So I think that's well understood, and this is why businesses seem to be more and more interested in diversity of all kinds. So I feel that those two things are hard to deny.
Okay, got that. You seem to have a very strong technology focus. You've sort of championed in the MBA curriculums, things like the digital technology immersion, and you've had a role as the director for the MS MBA. Now, I feel excited. It looks like there is this tech-driven professor who's now in charge of leading the MBA house if you will. And so how are you sort of seeing this?
That's a good question, Alvin. Thank you very much. I feel excited for being able to do things. It's hard to answer directly. So because we are definitely not a tech school, and the goal is not to become a tech school. However, as you know, AI is becoming more important, and data now pervades everything. So it's becoming important for MBAs today to have a sufficient understanding of data and analytics and tech to be able to do their job. So, for instance, when I talk to our consulting graduates who are in the management consulting industry, they will say that many of their projects deal with Industry 4.0 and digital transformation. When I talk to students in mainstream companies, they say they're working in digital marketing, or they have a large amount of data about their customers, and they want to figure out how to harness value from that data. Or they're setting up an e-commerce site and they want to do something. Or they're trying to meet the Euro norms or the new regulations, EUDR and traceability, etc. And they need, or carbon accounting, and therefore they need to set up the infrastructure for that. So I feel that technology offers solutions to lots of problems that we are facing today. So, and we have so far lagged behind in using technology. It has so far been the world of software engineers. But I feel that the analogy that I like to use here is like a Formula One car driver, that the Formula One car driver need not be an engineer who can make a car, but he or she needs to know how to take that car to its extremes and know its limits to be able to you harness its power to win a race. I think an MBA is like that. And that's how technology should interface with an MBA. They need not know what a specific Python library is, but they need to know what are the capabilities of technology and how will they use it.
So very interesting segue into AI. We have sort of arrived with LLMs and ChatGPTs making mincemeat out of homework and sort of giving professors a headache. Is there a specific strategy that you're how are you seeing the evolution of this, even within your coursework right now? And how are professors adapting to that?
So we are having a lot of discussions related to ChatGPT and generative AI, both from the perspective of how do we incorporate it in our curriculum to prepare our students for this new world to be able to harness it, and also from the perspective of pedagogy. And some of my colleagues have actually amazing ideas on this. For example, one of my colleagues in accounting has been doing research with virtual worlds for a very long time, and so he's spearheading with some of his ideas in this regard. I think the nature of grading that we do will change, obviously, and will change for the better, I feel. And some of my colleagues are incorporating ChatGPT into their exercises, like asking students to harness it to solve problems. All that, but it also has its dangers, so which we need to be aware of. I think these are fun times, and I think there's a lot to be done with all of these new technologies that are emerging, and yeah.
I think, if I was in your shoes, it would be a challenging time for a very simple reason. Tech is, this level of tech is now accessible to students. And so it would bring up very challenging questions around cheating, about people doing their homeworks. And I don't think there are any straightforward answers to any of this. Right? So, would love to, whenever you have a more evolved view on this, we would love to sort of focus and maybe even have a longer discussion just around that, maybe in due course, because we would really love to see.
Yeah, you are right. Yeah. I mean, one thing that my colleagues think about is whether to go back to the old world of exam books and written exams, and nobody wants to dial the time back to such a degree. So people are discussing and talking about this. So one thing that many of my colleagues now do is that they feed their exam questions to ChatGPT and check what it comes up with.
Okay.
And they feel very proud when ChatGPT can't
solve it. Yeah, there's no straightforward way. Oh, well, see, that's a nice hack there. But it's a hack, but I get it. I get it. With the sort of, there has been a question for the last few years about the value of an MBA and kind of the return on investment that somebody would sort of get, right? And you went to IIM Ahmedabad, and I think the value or the return on investment is usually phenomenal with respect to the fees. However, in any top school like yours, placements are getting to become a challenge across the world. It's not like investment bankings or the standard sectors are lining up as they used to. So how are you what are the unique set of things that you're now doing to sort of ensure optimal placement opportunities for your MBA candidates? And would love to hear as to how you're going to be evolving it over the next couple of years.
Yeah. There is a change happening with regard to the career paths that MBAs go into and the types of companies that recruit MBAs. Broadly, for us, the biggest areas of MBA placement are banking and consulting. And those two remain large. I think we place more than 60% of our class in just those two pillars. And I see those two as quite steady. I think investment banking is changing somewhat because students now need to know fintech. So we have introduced courses in fintech and curriculum in this at our Cornell Tech campus, for instance, for MBAs in Ithaca. So that's, but those are small changes that can happen. In consulting, similarly, the nature of consulting assignments that students have is changing, but the consulting pillar remains a strong pillar. Tech has been a growing pillar, and tech and product management and tech operations and digital marketing, they have kind of supplanted what were previously general management and brand management, etc., to some degree. So those have shrunk and tech has become bigger. So over the last 7-8 years, we have introduced new curriculum to address the needs of those students. So you were mentioning the example of the digital tech immersion, which emerged out of that because of student demand. And our degree program at Cornell Tech also emerged out of that due to student demand. So those three together are the bulk of the class. Then there are some students who are going for, I would say, dual career paths or interdisciplinary paths in say, human resources management or healthcare management and energy industry. Those are still, human resources has been there a long time, but is small. And the others are somewhat nascent and they are growing. So our attention is focused on these. Since you are in India, I should also mention that some of these career paths don't always sponsor a visa. So from the international student perspective, the situation looks slightly different. Specifically, banking does not usually sponsor, except for a few banks, but the others all sponsor. So an international student has to be a little more perseverant and a little more careful in looking for things, but it works out. Yeah. I hope I answered your question, Allwin.
No, I think you have. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So when you're sort of looking at, fostering entrepreneurship, and there is this evolution even in entrepreneurship, in sort of recent years, how are you sort of standing apart from other institutions which also focus on this specific topic?
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is important. Actually, a lot of our students, interestingly, don't pursue entrepreneurship immediately after graduation. but go into entrepreneurship a few years after graduation. So, for example, one of our graduates who is from India, from Orissa, he went into consulting, rose to become a partner, and wrote me an email saying how excited he was to become a partner so fast. And then after one more year, he wrote back saying, "I've left my job, I'm starting a new venture." So as you probably know, those cases are very common.
Yeah.
So when it comes to entrepreneurship, we feel that all MBA graduates, even if their immediate goal is not entrepreneurship, should have an entrepreneurial mindset or a product sense so that they can employ that in their organization and also use that when later on they want to make a transition towards entrepreneurship. That's basically the need that we want to serve. We serve this in two different ways. One is that we have a curriculum in entrepreneurship, and where students, like, it's called like a startup or a design your business type of a curriculum. So students will first take a course, introductory course, ideate, and then they take another course where they develop their ideas further. And then depending on how far one wants to go, they can take a course each semester and develop a complete sequence. So coursework is one way, like a structured coursework with faculty who have experience in entrepreneurship and can also nurture students' ideas is one way. The second is that we try to utilize the rest of Cornell. So many of our entrepreneurship courses are actually common with PhD students in engineering or sciences or agriculture. So for example, one of our MBA students started a new venture with a PhD in agriculture on disease-resistant crop. Another person started a venture with someone from mechanical engineering on 3D printed human cartilage tissue for accident victims. So there is this, and there are many examples of this kind where entrepreneurship happens between the combination of those who are generating the technology and those who can bring the technology to market. A final thing I would say is that we have an entire program at Cornell Tech, which is a one-year MBA program, and it's entirely focused on tech entrepreneurship and product management. And it's an interdisciplinary program because we have computer science, engineering, and business and tech law students all together in one campus. Yeah.
Okay, got that.
Yeah.
So we're seeing some recent decisions from prominent brands like Tesla and Facebook to sort of, in some sense, slow down on MBAs. And so this has sort of raised concerns among the MBA students as well, that if big tech, in some sense, is not very keen on hiring, then it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So what's your perspective on this, and how do you sort of see this playing out?
This is a great question, Allwin, and thank you for bringing it up. Perhaps like you, I feel that when or having talked to my friends who are in the tech industry, I've understood that when Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg make a statement like this, or when these companies say this, what they're really saying is that they need MBAs who have a product sense and who understand the business and technology and can do the job. So they're not, I feel they're not saying no to all MBAs, but they're saying that they need MBAs who are not just MBAs, but can also do these pieces to fit well into their companies and actually add value. We actually have several MBAs who work in Tesla and have been hired recently. And they're fantastic. And they were among the top few people in their class and highly energetic, etc. So I'm not seeing a slowdown by these companies. Likewise, we have MBA graduates who work at Facebook and in other tech companies, and they're doing really well. So I feel that those who are aspiring to do an MBA should not feel discouraged by these comments coming from these industries, and the comments really highlight the skills that someone needs to build. Yeah, I think for an MBA, it is really important to be self-sufficient and to be able to actually take the ball and run with it.
All
And that's the kind of people they're looking for.
Okay, fantastic. It's a good nuanced answer, because you're right. I don't think they want to ban MBAs. That's not the approach. But I think what they're also saying, as you very rightly said, is that the current set of skill sets that they're coming equipped with is not making them productive immediately. And I think that is an area of concern even for them.
Exactly. I think that's exactly right. I mean, today, many of these companies are no longer startups. They are large businesses, and they need MBAs for different kinds of roles that an engineer would not do. For example, Google needs people who can manage their advertisement accounts. Tesla needs people who will trade rare metals for batteries. So, or they need people who can run their corporate finance functions or their supply chain planning functions. A company like Google does not just have Google search. They also have lots of devices that they make, which have a large supply chain, much like Apple does, or much like a Dell or an HP does. So which spans countries, and so they definitely can't do without MBAs. Or Amazon has all of these online fulfillment centers, and one needs to be able to run real businesses. And I see our MBAs going into all different kinds of roles at these companies. I hope that's a message that people who are aspiring to do an MBA can take away from this.
Got that. So when some sort of focusing on, the Indian MBA aspirant, what are the top 3 pieces of advice would you give for somebody who's considering both the United States at this point in time, and secondly, your school?
Yeah. Again, I think we have amazing students from India and amazing graduates who are of Indian origin and have gone and done just wonderful things and have been outstanding. So I love the students that we get from India. I'm really happy with them. They contribute a lot to business, to society, and also to India. Many of them also go back and they're doing really amazing things in India, in the non-profit world as well as the for-profit world. I would say that the advice that I would give for students coming from India, one is and those coming to the US. One is that a 2-year MBA is actually a really good product, because you go through the curriculum in the first year, and then you get an internship to try out a new job, and that internship usually results in a full-time offer. And then you have the second year to lead and to hone your skills. And I see the amount of difference that happens over these 2 years with students. That's one thing that I would say, that these are really, really highly structured programs. In terms of advice, one thing a student should do, any MBA student should do, is to not just think about their coursework and their recruitment, but actually to get involved in all kinds of student leadership activities. So we have students who will organize a conference like there are a couple of students planning a conference in AI at this time, for example. And there are some students who get involved in career prep for other students. So I've found that those students who take on student leadership roles and don't think of an MBA as a pure transaction to get a job are the ones who do the best and get the most value out of an MBA. That's one suggestion I will make. A second suggestion I'll make is that that recruitment for international students is slightly more challenging than domestic, but persevere. And with perseverance, students typically get what they want. So they all do fine. I can think of lots of examples of our students who have done well.
All right, thank you. So what do you think? So every school has its own very unique cultural nuances and values that they want their students to sort of carry forward into the world once they graduate. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think are the like 2 or 3 most important learnings that you feel your MBA student should take with them once they have graduated from you?
Mm-hmm. So one thing for Cornell graduates is that Cornell is a very, very close-knit community. Because we are located in this small town of Ithaca, New York, what happens is that our students really make the campus their home, and they get very tightly connected with each other. So after they graduate and go out, our alumni come back regularly to campus to do recruitment, to do guest lectures in classes, or just to talk to faculty and meet with them. So that's something that I think not many other business schools have, and our graduates can carry that and be a part of this really tight community of Cornell graduates. That's a Cornell specific advice that I would give. A more general advice that I have for people who are graduating is, as I said before, that it is really important to have the skills to be self-sufficient, because today's companies are looking for someone who can not just manage, but can also do the job. So for example, we had 1 year, the CFO of Amazon came to campus and said, why did some people convert their internships into full-time offers and others did not? And we interviewed all of those students. And what we found was that those who converted all knew SQL. So they could directly tap into the Amazon data set and figure out what data they needed to get their job done. Whereas the others who did not know had to depend on others. And therefore they wasted 3 or 4 weeks of their 12-week internship or 10-week internship just to get started, which reduced their effectiveness. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
You said something very interesting. You said a beautiful line. You said it's not about managing people anymore. It's also about doing the job. And sort of how do you think this message can be conveyed to more and more prospective students and sort of graduates at the same time? Because I think that's a very fundamental shift in how employers are looking at students.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think we can communicate through our curriculum and through our career advising. Companies also play a role in communicating, but I think also media and outside advisors like you, to whom students look for resource. I think you also play a really important role in conveying stories of this kind to people who are looking to do an MBA. Yeah.
So thanks for that answer, sir. Because actually, I'm just brainstorming with you to try to solve this. Because you're right. Even when we hire, we also struggle with some very similar challenges. And what is interesting is this whole mindset of solving a problem and actively working on it, a problem until it's done. The MBA sort of degree has been looked upon by students as something that once they graduate, they're going to manage people and sort of be done. But the current world is not set up to sort of do that. And I haven't found, while companies are being increasingly vocal, and I also see that institutions are also changing. Even I'm curious as to maybe all of us just need to be more vocal about this, saying that whatever has worked until now, that's not going to continue. So maybe that's something on us as well.
Yeah. And MBA, and so engineers are used to getting the job done most of the time. MBAs also they have management skills, and which means that they have skills in how to work with people, how to have an accounting and financial and performance metrics type of orientation, and how to think about problems managerially, in the sense that, for instance, this problem may need a change in the organization structure, or this problem may need a change in reallocation of budget. So there's a whole gamut of managerial decisions that they can make. But more than taking decisions, I think then they also have to go and execute. Like, can I build a financial model? Can I do demand forecasting? Can I assess the supply chain risk of this product, etc.? So those hard tools and hard skills are required, and the more people get them and can use them, the better off they are.
Got that. Thank you so very much.